I was 71 years old the day my daughter told me I was no longer welcome at my own dinner table. The pot roast was still in the oven. I could smell it through the kitchen, that familiar scent of rosemary and garlic that had filled this house for 40 years. The same recipe my mother taught me when I was 12. The same recipe I'd made every Sunday since my husband passed. Then I heard him. My son-in-law Derek. His footsteps heavy on the stairs. That slow, deliberate walk that meant he had something to say. Something I wouldn't like. He appeared in the kitchen doorway. Arms crossed, that smirk on his face that I'd grown to recognize over the past 18 months. The one that never quite reached his eyes. "Ruth," he said. "Not Mum." Never Mum, even though I'd asked him to call me that when he married my daughter. "We need to talk about the dinner situation." I looked up from the cutting board where I was slicing carrots. The knife felt solid in my hand. "Familiar." "Excuse me." My daughter Karen appeared behind him. She was 43 years old, but standing there behind her husband, she looked like a teenager, shoulders hunched, eyes on the floor. That same posture she'd had when she was 16 and had crashed my car into the mailbox. "Mum," she said. Her voice was small. "Derek thinks it would be better if you ate in your room from now on." The words didn't make sense at first. Like she was speaking a foreign language I'd forgotten how to translate. My room, the small guest bedroom at the end of the hall, the room that used to be Karen's when she was growing up. The room I'd moved into 6 months ago because Derek said they needed the master suite for their home office. "It's just more practical," Derek continued. He walked toward me. His cologne hit me before he did. Something expensive. Something my daughter bought him with money they never seemed to have for anything else. "We have clients coming over sometimes. Business dinners. It's awkward, explaining why there's an old woman at the table." "Old woman." I set down the knife. My hands were steady, but something inside me was shaking. "I'm Karen's mother. I've lived in this house for 42 years. Karen, tell him this is ridiculous." But Karen didn't say anything. She just stood there, twisting her wedding ring around her finger. That nervous habit she'd had since childhood. The one that meant she was scared. The one that meant she wasn't going to help me. Derek smiled. That smile. "I'll set up a nice TV tray in your room. You'll be more comfortable there anyway. Less noise, less chaos." He turned and walked away like the conversation was over, like my opinion didn't matter, like I was just another piece of furniture to be rearranged. Karen followed him without looking at me, without saying a word. I stood alone in my kitchen, surrounded by the smell of pot roast, and felt something break inside my chest. That night, I ate dinner on a folding TV tray in the guest bedroom. The walls were pale blue. Karen's old dance trophies still lined the shelf above the closet. 3rd place, regional competition, 1995. 1st place, state finals, 1,997. I'd driven her to every practice, paid for every costume, sat in every audience and cheered until my voice gave out. The pot roast tasted like nothing. Karen had been such a sweet child. Kind, gentle. Always worried about everyone else's feelings. When her father died 8 years ago, she'd held me while I cried. Stayed with me for 2 weeks. Made sure I ate. Made sure I slept. Made sure I knew I wasn't alone. "I'll always be here for you, Mum," she'd said. "No matter what. You took care of me my whole life. Now it's my turn to take care of you." That was before Derek. They met at some networking event 3 years ago. He was charming at first. Handsome in that polished way some men are. Perfect hair, perfect teeth, perfect handshake. He worked in real estate, or said he did. Something about investments and property management and terms I didn't quite understand. They got married fast. 6 months from that first meeting to a wedding that cost more than my car. Derek wanted everything impressive. Everything that would impress his clients, his partners, his image of himself. Karen paid for most of it. Drained her savings, took out loans, smiled through the whole thing like she was the luckiest woman in the world. I should have said something then. Should have asked questions. Should have trusted the feeling in my gut that told me something wasn't right. But Karen was happy, or she seemed happy, and I wanted to believe it. 18 months ago they moved in. Just temporarily, Karen said. We were standing in the living room. She was directing the movers where to put Derek's furniture. leather couches that didn't match anything, a massive television that took up half the wall, glass coffee tables that showed every fingerprint. Derek's business is going through a transition, she explained. He's restructuring. We just need a few months to get back on our feet. Then we'll find our own place. That was 18 months ago. They never found their own place. They found mine instead. At first, it was small things. Derek rearranged the living room without asking, moved my husband's chair to the basement. The chair where Richard had sat every evening for 30 years. The chair where he'd read stories to Karen when she was small. The chair where he'd fallen asleep watching the news the night before his heart attack. It's old, Derek said when I asked about it. Doesn't match the aesthetic we're going for. I went to the basement that night, sat in Richard's chair in the dark, ran my hands over the worn armrests. The fabric was thin where his hands always rested. The cushion had molded to his body over decades. I'm sorry, I whispered to no one. I'm so sorry. I brought the chair back upstairs the next morning, put it exactly where it belonged. Derek was furious. His face turned red. His voice got loud. Karen stood in the corner, wringing her hands. This is my house, I said. My voice was shaking, but I said it anyway. That chair stays. Derek stared at me for a long moment. Then he smiled. That smile that never reached his eyes. Of course, Ruth. Whatever you say. But he'd won something that day. Learned something about me, that I could be pushed, that I could be scared, that eventually I would break. The chair disappeared again 2 weeks later. This time, I never found it. Then came the suggestions. My bedroom would be better, as an office. My bathroom was needed for guests. My Tuesday bridge club was too disruptive. My morning coffee routine took too long in the kitchen. Each suggestion came with that smile. Each suggestion came with Karen standing silent behind her husband. Each suggestion ended with me giving up something else. I stopped fighting. That's what I'm ashamed of now. I stopped fighting because it was easier than watching my daughter choose her husband over me. I stopped fighting because I was tired, because I was 71 years old and my bones ached and my heart hurt and I just wanted peace. I moved to the guest room, gave up my bathroom, changed my bridge club to Saturdays at Linda's apartment, started eating breakfast after Derek left for wherever he went during the day. Each concession felt small at the time, a minor inconvenience for family harmony. But they added up, like water dripping on stone, slowly wearing me away until there was nothing left of the woman I used to be. 6 months ago, Derek brought up the house. We were in the living room, his living room now, with his leather couches and his massive television. Karen sat beside him, not looking at me. Ruth, Derek said. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. That fake, concerned expression on his face. With you getting older, we've been thinking about the future. What happens if something happens to you? What about it? My voice was flat. I knew something bad was coming. It would really help everyone if you transferred the house to Karen. For estate planning purposes. Tax benefits. You'd still live here, obviously. Nothing would actually change. Nothing would change. The same words, the same promise, the same lie. I looked at Karen, my daughter, my only child, the baby I'd held in my arms 43 years ago and promised to protect forever. Karen, is this what you want? She nodded, still not looking at me. It just makes sense, Mum. Derek's accountant says it's the smart thing to do. Derek's accountant. Derek's decision. Derek's plan. I should have said no. Should have stood up and walked away. Should have thrown them both out of my house right then and there. But Karen was my daughter, and some part of me still believed she loved me. Still believed that underneath Derek's influence, she was still the kind girl who'd promised to take care of me. Still believed that family meant something. I signed the papers. A lawyer came to the house. Not my lawyer, Derek's lawyer. He explained things in that fast way professionals do when they don't expect you to understand. Words like asset protection and probate avoidance and estate simplification. I signed where he pointed. Karen witnessed. Everything legal, everything binding, everything final. Nothing's going to change, Mom, Karen said after the lawyer left. She hugged me for the first time in months. You'll always have a home here. Everything changed. Within weeks, Derek stopped pretending. He made decisions without asking, invited people over without telling me, started calling the house theirs instead of mine. Karen went along with everything, became a stranger wearing my daughter's face. Then last week, the dinner table. Go eat in your room, old woman. You're making our guests uncomfortable. I lasted 3 more days. 3 days of eating alone. 3 days of being invisible in my own home. 3 days of watching Karen avoid my eyes. On the 4th day, I woke up to find the locks had been changed. I stood at my own front door with my key that didn't work. Pushed it in and out, tried it again and again, like the lock would somehow remember me, Derek answered when I rang the bell. He was wearing a bathrobe at 11 in the morning. Coffee in his hand, my coffee mug, the yellow one with the sunflower that Richard had given me for our 20th anniversary. "Oh," he said. "Ruth, you're still here. I live here." My voice cracked. "Let me in." "Actually, we've decided it's time for you to find other arrangements." He leaned against the doorframe. Casual. Like we were discussing the weather. "This is our house now, and frankly, having you here is causing tension in our marriage." "Your house?" "My house. My home. The home I'd lived in for 42 years. The home where I'd raised Karen. The home where Richard had died in my arms. Derek, please. I hate that I begged. Hate that my voice shook. Just let me get my things. My medication. My photographs." Derek shrugged. "Karen packed up some of your stuff. It's in the garage. Take what you can carry. The rest, we'll donate." Karen appeared behind him. My daughter. My baby girl. She was wearing new clothes. Expensive clothes. She looked away when our eyes met. "I'm sorry, Mum," she mumbled. "It's just better this way." "Better for who?" I asked, but she was already walking away, already disappearing into my house, already gone. I spent that night in my car in a grocery store parking lot, 71 years old, sleeping in the back seat of my Honda with a thin blanket and my purse as a pillow. The parking lot lights buzzed above me. Teenagers laughed somewhere in the distance. A shopping cart rolled by. Pushed by the wind. I didn't cry. I was too shocked to cry. Too numb to feel anything, except a cold emptiness, where my heart used to be. The next morning, I checked into a motel, cheap place off the highway, the kind with stained carpets and thin walls and locks that didn't look quite secure. The woman at the front desk was young, maybe 25. She looked at me with something like pity when I counted out cash with shaking hands. "Room 8, she said softly. "It's quiet, away from the highway noise." I thanked her, took the plastic keycard, walked to room 8, sat on the hard bed, stared at the water stains on the ceiling, tried to understand how my life had arrived at this exact moment. I checked my bank account on my phone. I'd had over $40,000 3 months ago, savings from my pension, money from Richard's life insurance, money I'd been saving for emergencies, for medical bills, for the future I thought I had. The account showed $847. I scrolled through the transactions. My hands stopped shaking. Everything became very clear, very focused. Automatic transfers. Small amounts at first. $150 here, $300 there, then larger, $500, $800, $1,000, $200, all going to an account I didn't recognize, but I knew. I'd added Karen to my account years ago. When Richard was dying, I wanted her to have access in case something happened to me. Wanted to make sure she could handle things if I got sick. She'd had access for 8 years. And I'd never thought to check. Never thought to worry. Never imagined my own daughter would steal from me. I called the bank. Sat on hold for 20 minutes, finally reached someone. A man named Thomas with a kind voice. "Those transfers were authorized by a joint account holder," he explained. "Karen Mitchell, your daughter. She's had access since 2017. Can I remove her?" "I'm sorry, ma'am. Not without her signature. Joint account holders have equal rights. You could close the account and open a new one, but you'd need to come in person." I thanked Thomas. Hung up. Sat there in that ugly motel room my daughter had stolen from me. Had drained my account slowly, carefully, while smiling at me across the dinner table, while telling me nothing would change, while pushing me out of my own home inch by inch. I called Karen. The phone rang 4 times. Then voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Karen. Leave a message and I'll call you back." I left 12 messages that day, each one more desperate than the last. "Karen, please call me back. I don't understand what's happening." "Karen, I'm at a motel. I don't have anywhere to go. Karen, I'm your mother. Please." She never called back. 2 days later, I was sitting in the motel parking lot. I'd counted my remaining money 3 times, $623 after paying for another night. Maybe a week of motel rooms if I didn't eat much. Maybe 2 weeks if I found somewhere cheaper. A silver car pulled up beside me. Expensive, clean. The kind of car that looked wrong in this parking lot with its cracked pavement and overflowing dumpsters. A woman got out. 50-something, grey suit, sensible heels. She was carrying a leather briefcase and walking directly toward my car. I rolled down my window. "Can I help you, Ruth Patterson?" Her voice was professional, warm but professional. The voice of someone used to delivering important news. "Who's asking?" "My name is Margaret Chen. I'm an attorney from Hartford. I've been trying to reach you for several weeks. Your daughter said you were traveling and unavailable." I almost laughed. Traveling. Is that what Karen told her? "What do you want?" I asked. Not friendly. Not unfriendly. Just tired. Margaret looked at the motel behind me, looked at my car, at the blanket in the back seat, at the grocery bag of clothes visible through the window. Her expression shifted, softened. "Is there somewhere we can talk privately, Mrs. Patterson? This is rather sensitive." We ended up in a diner. Cracked vinyl booths, laminated menus, coffee that tasted like it had been sitting on the burner for hours. Margaret ordered tea. I ordered nothing, too proud to admit I was counting every dollar. "Mrs. Patterson," Margaret began. She pulled papers from her briefcase. Thick papers, official looking. "I represent the estate of Eleanor Warren. Does that name mean anything to you?" Eleanor. The name floated up from somewhere deep in my memory. My mother's sister, Aunt Eleanor, the one who'd moved to Maine 50 years ago. The one who'd sent Christmas cards every year with handwritten notes. The one I'd visited once, maybe twice when I was young. "She passed away 4 months ago," Margaret continued. "She never married, never had children. In her will, she left everything to you. You were her only living relative." I stared at Margaret. The words weren't connecting, weren't making sense. "Left me what?" Margaret slid a document across the table. "There was a house in Maine. We sold it last month, per the estate's instructions. There were also investments, bonds, savings accounts. The total value of the estate is approximately $1.8 million. I read the number, read it again, read it 3 times. The numbers didn't change. "This can't be real," I whispered. Margaret pulled out more papers, bank statements, property records, investment portfolios, everything stamped and notarized and legal. "I've been trying to notify you for months," she said. "Every time I called, your daughter said you weren't available, that you were confused, that she was handling your affairs." Margaret leaned forward. Her eyes were sharp, concerned. "Mrs. Patterson, your daughter contacted me 3 weeks ago, said you'd given her power of attorney, said you had dementia and couldn't handle this kind of money. She wanted to discuss transferring the inheritance directly to her." The diner seemed to tilt. The fluorescent lights buzzed too loud. Margaret's voice came from far away. "I told her I needed to verify everything directly with you, that it was required by law. She got quite upset, said I was wasting everyone's time. Then she stopped returning my calls." Margaret paused. "That's when I started looking for you myself, when I found out your phone was disconnected, when I found out you weren't living at your address anymore. I had to find you. I sat there in that diner booth, papers scattered in front of me, numbers that meant everything and nothing. And I understood. Karen had known about the inheritance for months. The house transfer hadn't been about estate planning. The bank account access hadn't been forgotten. Derek's sudden push to get rid of me hadn't been random. All of it had been planned. My daughter, the baby I'd held in my arms, the child I'd sacrificed everything for, the girl who'd promised to always take care of me. She'd plotted to rob me blind. "Mrs. Patterson." Margaret's voice cut through my thoughts. Are you all right? I wiped my eyes, straightened my shoulders, felt something hard and certain settle into my chest. I'm fine. What do I need to sign? We spent 3 hours in that diner. Margaret walked me through everything. The inheritance was mine, legally protected. Karen had no claim to it, no right to it, no access whatsoever. My original house was gone. The deed transfer was legal. I'd signed it willingly. But there were other options, Margaret said. Elder abuse laws, financial exploitation statutes. If I wanted to pursue legal action, yes, I said. The word came out hard. Final, I want to pursue everything. Margaret nodded. I'll connect you with the right people. I didn't go back to the motel. Margaret helped me find a hotel. A nice one. Clean sheets. Room service. A door that locked properly. I stood in the shower for 45 minutes. Let the hot water run over me. Watched the dirt and fear and despair swirl down the drain. Then I got to work. I hired a private investigator, a man named Robert Santos, former police detective. He didn't ask many questions, just nodded and quoted me a price. I'll have something for you in a week. He had something in 4 days. The file was thick. Bank records, credit card statements, text messages, emails, all of it painting a picture I didn't want to see but needed to understand. Karen and Derek were drowning. Credit card debt over $70,000, 2 cars with payments they couldn't afford, a lifestyle built entirely on borrowed money and stolen funds. Derek's real estate business was a lie. He had a website with stock photos, business cards with a fake address. He'd never sold a single property, never made a single legitimate deal. He'd been living off Karen's income, then living off my money, then planning to live off my inheritance. The emails were the worst. Karen to Derek, 6 months ago. Mum's inheritance could solve everything. We just need to get her out of the picture first. Derek to Karen, 5 months ago. The house transfer is done. Now we work on the bank accounts. Slow withdrawals. She won't notice until it's too late. Karen to Derek. 3 months ago. The lawyer keeps asking to talk to her directly. What do we do? Derek to Karen. Same day. Tell her your mum has dementia, that you have power of attorney. Buy us time until we figure this out. My daughter had called me demented, had lied about having power of attorney, had stolen my money while smiling at me across the dinner table. I read those emails until I had them memorized, until the words were burned into my brain, until every shred of doubt, every hope that there had been some misunderstanding, was completely destroyed. Then I made a phone call. "This is Ruth Patterson," I said when someone answered. "I'd like to report financial elder abuse." The police took it seriously. Assigned a detective, a woman named Jackson who specialized in elder exploitation cases. She asked careful questions, took detailed notes, told me this happened more often than people thought. The investigation moved fast, bank records subpoenaed, emails obtained, evidence mounted. Karen and Derek had left a trail of fraud so obvious it was almost insulting. They thought I was too old to fight back, too confused to understand what they'd done, too weak to do anything about it. They were wrong. The arrest happened on a Tuesday morning. I watched from across the street, sat in my rental car, and watched 2 police officers walk up to my old front door. My house. The house where I'd raised my daughter. The house where my husband had died in my arms. Derek answered the door. His face went white when he saw the badges. White, then red. Then something like panic. He tried to close the door, tried to run. The officers caught him in the driveway, put him in handcuffs while he screamed about lawyers and rights and mistakes. Karen came out a minute later. She was still in her pajamas. Still wearing those expensive silk pajamas I'd seen her buy with my money. She was crying. Those big, dramatic sobs I remembered from when she was a child. The sobs that used to make me give her whatever she wanted. They didn't work on the police officers. They put her in handcuffs too, led her to a separate car. She looked around wildly, looked for help, looked for someone to save her. Her eyes found me across the street. Our eyes met for just a moment. Mother and daughter, 71 years of love and sacrifice and betrayal, all passing between us in a single look. Then she looked away. and they put her in the car and drove away. I sat there for a long time after they left, watching my house, watching the neighbors come out to stare, watching the life I used to have disappear like smoke. The trial was 3 months later. A courtroom, hard wooden benches, fluorescent lights that made everyone look tired. I wore a navy blue dress I'd bought with my inheritance money. Pearl earrings, comfortable shoes. I looked like exactly what I was, a grandmother who'd been robbed by her own family. Karen saw me the moment she walked in. She looked terrible, thin, pale, dark circles under her eyes. The expensive clothes were gone, the perfect hair was gone, everything polished and fake was gone. "Mom," she said. Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please." I said nothing, just looked at her, looked through her, like she was a stranger, like she was no one at all. Derek didn't even try to apologize. He glared at me from across the courtroom. That same glare he'd given me 100 times. That glare that used to make me shrink. It didn't work anymore. The charges were serious. Financial exploitation of an elderly person, theft, fraud, identity theft for the fake power of attorney claim. The prosecutor laid out everything. The emails, the bank records, the lies, the calculated cruelty. Karen's lawyer tried to argue she'd been manipulated by Derek, that she was a victim too, that she'd made mistakes but didn't deserve prison. The judge wasn't impressed. "I've read the emails," she said. "Your client called her mother a demented old fool, called stealing from her easy, planned to put her in a nursing home against her will. That's not being manipulated, that's participating in exploitation. Derek got 4 years, Karen got 3. Restitution ordered for everything they'd stolen. The house would be sold to pay debts. Everything they'd built on lies was crumbling around them." Karen cried through the whole sentencing. Derek stared at his hands. I felt nothing. Nothing, except a quiet peace. A weight lifting. A story finally ending. I bought a new house, 3 hours away. A small town in Vermont, ironically not far from where Aunt Eleanor had lived. A cottage with a garden. Room for flowers. Room for a vegetable patch. Room to breathe. I joined a book club, made friends, women my age who didn't see me as a burden, who laughed at my jokes, who remembered my birthday, who never asked about my daughter because I never mentioned her. Karen wrote me letters from prison, 1 every week. The same handwriting I'd taught her when she was 6 years old. The same loops and curves I used to praise. The same hand that had signed documents stealing my home. I burned them. Every single one. Didn't read them, didn't open them, just watched them curl and blacken and disappear. Some bridges can't be rebuilt, some trust can't be restored, some betrayals are too deep for forgiveness. I'm 72 now, a year older than I was when my daughter told me to eat in my room. A year older than I was when my key stopped working in my own door. I have my house, my real house, the one no one can take. I have my money, my security, my independence. I have friends who care about me, neighbors who wave when I walk by, a life that belongs entirely to me. And Karen? Karen has 3 years in a cell to think about what she did. To think about the mother she threw away. To think about how greed destroyed everything she could have had. The worst punishment wasn't the prison sentence. It wasn't the criminal record, or the restitution, or the destroyed reputation. The worst punishment was that I stopped being her mother. I erased her from my life as completely as she tried to erase me from hers. She's an orphan now, has been since the day she chose money over me. That was her choice, her greed, her doing, not mine. I'm finally free. If you've ever been treated like a burden by people you gave everything to, if you've ever been pushed aside in your own home, if you've ever had to fight for what's rightfully yours while everyone told you to just accept it, then you know something important. You still have power. Your story isn't over just because someone decided you don't matter anymore. Don't let anyone tell you you're too old to fight back. Don't let anyone steal your dignity along with your money. Don't let anyone make you invisible in your own life. Stand up, fight back. Let your actions speak louder than their cruelty ever could. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have fought back the same way? Would you have forgiven your daughter? Tell me in the comments what this story taught you about family, about betrayal, about knowing when to let go. And click on the next video on your screen. Another story is waiting for you. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this one. I'll see you in the next one.